Congratulations, you now own Antarctica, all 7.5 million square miles. But no one can own it. 7 nations drew claims: Britain, Argentina, Chile, with overlapping lines. Then in 1959, the Antarctic Treaty froze every claim. No new claims, no enlargements. Yet last year, over 122,000 people visited. You own a continent nobody can legally own. Before you spend a cent, let's see what the people here are doing. 3 hidden money machines keep it going. One involves a country flying a pregnant woman, just to have a baby born there. So before we follow the money, let's look at what you have actually just been handed. Because the size of this place is the first thing that will break you. Antarctica is 1.5 times the size of the United States. It holds 90% of the world's ice. It is the most cold, most dry, most windy continent on Earth. The lowest temperature ever recorded anywhere, -128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, when it was measured right here. It looks like a perfect white picture, but it is actually a frozen desert. It fights every human footprint you try to make. Just keeping a small base like on a few buildings that won't get buried in snow costs a fortune. The United States alone spends nearly $250 million a year just on Antarctic buildings and operations. One company that handles the supply work, called Leidos, has been paid almost $2.7 billion since 2016. They run the on-the-ice logistics, moving people, fuel, food, and equipment. A single rebuild project at the main American base, McMurdo Station, costs roughly $500 million. That's a massive expense for just one project. And that is just one country. Dozens of nations run research bases here. Just keeping the lights on and the heat running uses up hundreds of millions every year. And that's before anyone makes a single dollar of profit. Remember, this whole frozen continent is yours now, and just keeping a few buildings above the snow costs more than you would ever imagine. So where is the money that pays for all this actually coming from? The most obvious answer is the one sailing past your coast right now: tourism. And the tourists are not paying you a cent. They are paying someone else to step onto land that you supposedly own. Last season, more than 107,000 visitors came through operators that report to the main tourism body. The year before that, more than 122,000 people visited if you count all the cruise ships that sail past. Almost all of it, 98%, is packed onto a long, thin stretch of land called the Antarctic Peninsula. This is the most warm, most easy-to-reach corner of the continent. The moment you understand how the operators make money here, you understand the first hidden machine. They cannot sell the land, so they sell the right to have stood on it. And they keep that right rare on purpose. The industry is watched over by an organization called IATO. It sets very strict rules. Only 100 people are allowed onto land at any one site at any one time. Ships carrying more than 500 passengers cannot land anyone at all. For every 20 tourists, there must be at least one guide. That limited access is exactly what makes the trips expensive. A typical expedition cruise of 10 to 15 days costs between $10,000 and $30,000 per person. Luxury trips can easily go past $100,000. The whole market is worth more than $700 million and growing. A big part of the thinking here is what people call last chance tourism, the rush to see it before the ice melts. So a company builds a cruise ship that costs $400 million. It sails it to the bottom of the world. It takes exactly 100 passengers at a time onto a small rock beach in a little rubber boat. Those passengers pay thousands just to stand on a patch of rock they can never keep. Owning the ice brings in exactly zero money. Selling a timed ticket to look at it is where the money is. But the cruise ships are just the mass market version. There is a much smaller, much stranger group above them, and this is where the price of your ice really goes way up. A company called White Desert flies wealthy guests deep into the interior. They use a private, chartered Airbus plane. It lands on a runway of solid blue ice. There is no paved road, no airport building, just a strip of frozen water that goes on into the white, empty space. They offer packages with names like South Pole and Penguins at $115,500 per person. A shorter trip, Baby Penguins and Blue Tunnels, goes for $75,250. Even a single-day trip costs $16,500. You fly from Cape Town, you go down an ice cave, you climb down a glacier on a rope, you have a drink at an ice bar, and fly home. What are people buying? Each camp is limited to about 12 guests. The South Pole itself is visited by fewer than 500 people a year. $100,000 does not buy a hotel room or a piece of land. It buys the right to be one of a very small number of humans who have ever stood at the bottom of the world. On a continent you own, the most expensive thing money can buy is the permission to stand on it for a few hours. Here is the smallest, most strange version of the whole business model. If you want to understand how money gets made on your continent, look at a tiny island off the peninsula. There, a former British base now runs the most southern post office on Earth. It is called Port Lockroy. The building is a little wooden hut painted black and red. Curious Gentoo penguins live all around it. A charity, the UK Antarctic Heritage Trust, runs it as a museum, a gift shop, and a working post office. People sometimes call it the Penguin Post Office. Each summer, about 18,000 tourists stop here. In a single season, the staff can process up to 80,000 letters and postcards. A tiny crew of about 4 people gets hired for 5 months. Their jobs: sort the mail, run the shop, count the group of roughly 1,500 penguins that live there. The living conditions: no running water, a bucket for a toilet, and no shower. The only chance to wash is when a passing cruise ship invites the staff on board. The whole operation turns that experience into something you can send in the mail. It becomes a stamp, a postcard, a fridge magnet. The money goes right back into looking after the site. On a continent that cannot be owned, someone is running a retail store. So the tourists are paying to look at your ice. A gift shop at the bottom of the world sells penguin postcards. But if you think that is where the real money is, you have not looked offshore. The biggest business on your continent brings in the smallest life in the water. You have probably seen the word krill on a supplement bottle. It is a shrimp-like animal, a few centimeters long. It is the base of the entire Antarctic food chain, and it is being sucked up in huge amounts. In 2024, the krill fishing industry landed around 500,000 tons. One Norwegian company, Aker Biomarine, handles the biggest share, about 64% of the catch in recent years. Its revenue from krill products hit $199 million that year. How they do it? A big fishing ship runs a continuous pump. A hose stays underwater, sucking in living krill 24 hours a day. The krill are turned into oil on board before they go bad. And here is the twist. The oil becomes the soft gel omega-3 pill on a pharmacy shelf, or it becomes feed for farmed salmon. Nobody owns the krill or the water. The landlord is a treaty commission called CCMLR. It limits the catch to 1% of the estimated total amount of life. The current catch sits at about 0.4% of the roughly 60 million ton total. That is nowhere near the limit, but it is still hundreds of thousands of tons of wildlife turned into health products each year. There is a bigger business here than mining, pulling things out of nature. A Norwegian company turns the base of the food chain into fish oil pills. The Treaty Commission acts as landlord. The krill you have probably never heard of, but there is another creature being pulled from your waters, and there is a good chance you have already eaten it. It just was not called what you think it was. The Patagonian toothfish and the Antarctic toothfish are deep, slow-growing fish that hunt other fish. They live in freezing water a mile down. You will never see the word toothfish on a menu. In the United States and Canada, it is sold as Chilean sea bass. In Japan, it is mero. In Spain, robalo. It got a new, friendlier name, and it worked. The average import price rose more than 60% between 2007 and 2012. This happened even as the amount of fish caught went down. At a restaurant with white tablecloths, a plate costs $30 or more. You get a buttery, flaky fish fillet, and they never once think about Antarctica. The box in the kitchen says nothing about the Southern Ocean. The origin is cleaned off the label. It's the same setup as the krill. Nobody owns the fish. A treaty commission plays landlord. A valuable product gets taken out, and the customer never knows where it came from. But there is an even stranger form of taking things out happening here. One where the product does not weigh anything at all. The value does not leave your continent in a fishing net. It leaves in a labby freezer. Antarctic living things survive conditions that would kill almost anything else. That biology is worth money. Companies and researchers have already filed 92 US patents and 62 European patents tied to Antarctic forms of life. They are especially interested in anti-freeze proteins. These are molecules that stop ice crystals from growing. They take them from fish, krill, and yeast that live in these waters. Those proteins might be used to keep frozen food good and protect crops from frost. They could even keep human cells alive during freezing for medical procedures. Here is the legal unclear area. You cannot patent a continent, but you can patent a protein taken from a fish that swims beside it. The Antarctic treaty system never clearly decided who, if anyone, gets a share of the profits from molecules taken off a continent nobody owns. The value walks away without being seen, as digital code on a computer hard drive. At this point, you are probably thinking, wait, what about the stuff in the ground? There has to be oil, there have to be minerals. That is where the real wealth is. You are not wrong that it is down there. In 1991, the Madrid Protocol forever banned mining. Article 7 says, any activity relating to mineral resources other than scientific research shall be prohibited. There is no time limit. You might have heard that the ban runs out in 2048. That is a myth. What happens in 2048 is only that any party can ask for a review meeting, but the ban stays in force unless a new binding agreement replaces it. That would need agreement among all the main nations that discuss the treaty. In 2016, those nations clearly voted to say again that the ban stays. They did this precisely because the myth had spread so widely. So you own a safe, and the whole world has agreed to keep it locked. The obvious fortune, to dig it up and sell it, is the one business model your continent does not allow. By design, with no end date. That forces every other way of making money here to be this strange. So the visible economy is tourism. The invisible economy is pulling things out of nature. And the obvious economy, mining, is locked away. That leaves one question. If nobody can dig and nobody can own land, what are all those countries actually doing down there with their research stations? The answer is the most strange money machine on your continent, and it is the one that explains why a military government once flew a woman 7 months pregnant to the bottom of the world. National governments spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year to keep a presence in Antarctica. The United States pays that $250 million yearly bill. Billions go to logistics. A single base rebuild costs $500 million. All of that pays for real science, sure. But a common argument says a quiet, real purpose of that spending is just being there. The treaty froze every land claim, but it froze them in place. It did not remove them entirely. On a continent where you cannot grow your slice on the map, what valuable thing is left? Presence. Running a base, keeping a flag flying, doing research that does not give you a legal claim. But it is the closest thing to currency there is when claims are paused. No country showed that commitment more strongly than Argentina. In 1977, under the military government, the army began moving families to Esperanza Base. That included pregnant women. The goal was for normal life and birth to happen on Antarctic land. That year, Silvia Morella de Palma, 7 months pregnant, was flown to the base. On January 7, 1978, she gave birth to Emilio Marcos de Palma, 7 pounds, 8 ounces. He was the first human ever born on the continent of Antarctica. His father was in charge of the base. The birth was entirely on purpose. A baby born to prove something in a land argument. Legally, it changed nothing about the claim freeze. That is exactly what makes it so revealing. The clearest sign of your continent's real economy is a newborn wrapped in a blanket at the South Pole. Put there on purpose to say, "We were here." So that is your continent. You cannot sell the land. So the tourism industry sells scarcity they created on purpose, a timed ticket to stand on ice. You cannot mine it. So big factory ships pull in 500,000 tons of krill. They hide where it came from. They turn it into a health pill. You cannot expand a claim. So governments spend hundreds of millions a year to keep flags flying and run research stations. And one of them flew a pregnant woman to the bottom of the world. They did it just so a baby's first breath was taken on Antarctic ice. Antarctica was designed to be worthless to own. The whole economy is built on the fact that nobody owns it. The land itself never paid a cent. The money came from the people trying to reach it, fish it, patent it, and prove they were here. Now you know where the money really is.